And I do believe it was a foul, which is why Morris was arguing with the referee at the end of the game. I thought it was a foul that could have been called, but the referee didn't want to let a free throw decide the game. Sometimes that happens. But they were in Milwaukee going up against the Greek Freak, being the Greek Freak that he is, with Milwaukee hitting perimeter shots, defending, the Greek Freak doing his thing. Obviously, Budenholzer pulling all the right strings, making all the right calls, and it still came down to the last play of the game. That is not convincing me that Milwaukee is the team to beat in the East. They're one of them, but Boston is right there as well as far as I'm concerned. I'm not jumping ship on the Celtics.
Bucks are the team to beat in the East. The Milwaukee Bucks still have to prove it in the playoffs. They do. They have basically wire to wire had the best record in the NBA this year. An NBA that includes the Golden State Warriors, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the way they're playing out west. The Nuggets were hot early. I mean, the Jazz were disappointing, obviously, and the Rockets. But the teams I just mentioned out west, let alone in the East, you think about what the Raptors did. They didn't just get Kawhi Leonard. They got Danny Green, and then they brought in reinforcements since then. You think about the Sixers starting five and the trade deadline moves they made and the fact they had Embiid and Simmons all season anyway and added Jimmy Butler and then Tobias Harris. You look at the Celtics and how deep they were even to begin the season. They were in the conference finals last year, and yet the Milwaukee Bucks, basically wire to wire, have had the best record in basketball. And why is it? Because they've been the best team in basketball. And why is that? Because they've had the best player in basketball in the Greek Freak. LeBron James, because he missed time, is not going to be the MVP this year. I believe the Greek Freak will be. I also believe, Stephen A., now I say LeBron James is so much better than everyone else. I thought he showed it again last night. So much better than everyone else except the Greek Freak. LeBron has company pretty soon. This dude, I thought it would be AD. He'd be more entering his prime. Maybe he'd overtake LeBron by the end of the season. Don't let the Bucks get to the finals and maybe win a game or two from Golden State. Because maybe the Greek Freak will pass him. Like, the Greek Freak balls out in the playoffs. If he ever gets a three-point shot, it's the greatest player of all time. I'm telling you that right now. He's going to be the guy to replace Jordan. But look at him at both sides of the floor. A 7-footer with that kind of court vision, those kind of lightning LeBron James level, like, oh, that's Magic Johnson or Larry Bird passing, only with extra mustard-type passer. The way he takes it to the rack like he's Shaq or like Jordan, but 7 feet tall. You saw him with a chase-down block last night. And look what else is on the team. You mentioned Brogdon and Bledsoe, right? How about Middleton, who's an all-star? How about the fact that Mirotic only played 14 minutes last night? Mirotic is a 37% shooter, taking 6-7 threes a game normally. He only played 14 minutes. Right now, Ilyasova, who was kind of useful for the Sixers in the playoffs last year, Mirotic is like the big boy Ilyasova, and he's not even ready yet, not to mention Brook Lopez, a 7-foot, 270-pounder, who also takes about 7 threes a game and hits 37% of them. They surrounded the MVP, a guy who may surpass LeBron James in the near future as the best player on earth. They surrounded that guy with a great coach who knows how to coach it up, and nothing but shooters from the outside, and some of them, like Bledsoe, can put it on the floor. This is a problem. I'm curious to see, how do they play in the playoffs, Stephen A? Do they get out of the East? And then what do they look like against Golden State? Because the Bucks look so far the entire season like the real deal. They're the team to beat.
I don't look at it that way. They have to prove it, number one, because I think that come playoff time, defenses get back, the game slows down, and as dominant as the Greek Freak is going to be on the interior, the reality is that he's going to have to be able to step away from the basket and hit perimeter shots when it counts in order to propel Milwaukee, and I have to see him do that to believe it. I like Middleton. I still got to see it to believe it. I like Mirotic. I like these guys, and clearly with the length and their shooting ability, it can't be ignored. And Budenholzer, to me, the Coach of the Year race is between him and Nate McMillan in Indiana. There is no doubt in my mind. I got that. But I believe in Boston. And I believe the best is yet to come from Jaylen Brown, from Jason Tatum, from Kyrie Irving. I believe they recognize the challenge that lies in wait. Mm-hmm. The fact that Milwaukee goes down to the wire to them, I think it's clear evidence that it's a nip and tuck battle. I'm not saying that Milwaukee is not in the picture. I'm not saying that Milwaukee obviously shouldn't be strongly considered, to be the team that could come out of the Eastern Conference. We've got to pay attention to Toronto, too, who's only a game and a half out. I mean, they're 43-16 for crying out loud, and Kawhi Leonard has missed his slew of games, so let's not ignore that either. But in the end, what I'm saying is that it's a toss-up. And to me, it's Philly on the outside looking in because of their lack of depth. Their starting five can compete with anybody, but their bench is questionable. So to me, it's about Boston, it's about Milwaukee, and it's about Toronto, and it's a toss-up right now. And that's why I don't say, Milwaukee is the team in the East.
But I'm saying, you're right. It is. It's a 4-team race.
I'm going with Boston. I didn't stutter.
If Oladipo
I've been with
was
Boston
healthy,
since the
maybe
beginning.
It's a 5-team race.
I've been with Boston since the beginning. You've been with Toronto, and you ain't even mentioned them.
But you know why? Because when new evidence comes in, you sometimes got to alter
your
opinion.
What evidence? The players ain't begin yet?
The Bucks look like the team I thought Toronto would be. And you used last night as an example. They're at Milwaukee. It's nip and tuck the whole way. It's maybe a missed call at the end, and Milwaukee barely wins by the skin of their teeth. I look at it another way. That game had, to me, the feeling of a game where Boston's hanging around. You mentioned no Gordon Hayward. The young kids will feel better. Kyrie's got something to prove. And I felt like it was the type of game Boston would win. But you know what happened? Every time they get closer, you blink. And because of the Greek freak, everyone's open, and they're back up to an 8-point lead. And in the end, it was their defense, that held and won the game.
Yeah, but you addressed my point. I said you talked about Toronto at the beginning. You talked about Toronto the first half, and you didn't even mention them. And then your comeback is, new evidence. Well, the playoffs haven't arrived yet, so where's the new evidence? Your playoffs against James Harden. Well, if I want to look at it that way, what's he doing in the regular season? I can use that as new evidence. You don't want to hear it with James Harden. How come you want to hear it with Toronto?
No, there's no way I can argue right now that I know what Milwaukee's going to do in the playoffs, because you're right, we got to see him. But I know this. They've been the best team in basketball wire to wire.